They called it a leadership transition. No agenda, no presentation. Just a room filled with people, pretending this wasn't already decided days, if not weeks, before I walked in. My father sat at the head of the table. He always did, hands folded, smile soft. The kind of softness only men in power wear when they're about to take something from you and call it a gift. He was wearing the navy linen suit I'd tailored for him 3 years ago. The one we picked out for the Fortune interview that never happened. I noticed the cufflinks, not his usual ones. These were sleeker, more modern, Sabrina's style. "We believe it's time for new energy," he began. Not I, we, of course. I didn't blink. 12 people sat around that table. VP's legal marketing, a representative from our main investor. None of them looked at me directly. Except one, Sabrina. She didn't smile. She beamed, as if the light in the room came from her. "We're suggesting you take a leave." My mother added voice clean and well-practiced. 6 months, unpaid, time to reset, reflect. Perhaps even find your inspiration again. My inspiration, I built Sterling Botanica from leftover savings and sleep deprivation. I made our first batch of serum in a stainless steel pot we used for holiday stews. I convinced Whole Foods to carry our product with nothing but a sample in a recycled jar and a pitch deck printed at FedEx. Sabrina, meanwhile, had once tried to expense a $600 Aura photography session for brand authenticity. And now she was their idea of the future. I said nothing. Not yet. Let them fill the air. Who's stepping in during this inspiration leave, I asked, though I already knew the answer. It was written across every molecule of Sabrina's tailored cream blazer. "Sabrina will serve as interim CEO," my father said, like it was a logical next step and not a rehearsed betrayal. I let the silence grow, just long enough for it to taste uncomfortable. "That's bold," I said, finally smoothing my skirt. "But then again, I've always respected boldness. It's in our original mission statement, if you remember." Sabrina tilted her head. A flicker of discomfort passed through her, quickly masked by that media-trained calm. "We're not replacing your vision, Clara," she said, "just evolving it." "Evolution's a funny thing," I replied. "Sometimes the organism loses its backbone." My mother flinched, just barely. Her earrings, a gift from Sabrina, not even subtle, caught the light every time she turned away from me. Then they handed me the folder. My name printed neatly on the front. Inside, a transition proposal, streamlined operations, consolidated leadership, dissolution of the original R&D committee, shifting product oversight under brand narrative. And on the first page, in sleek serif font, proposal by Sabrina Sterling. I knew the document. It was mine, or had been before I left it, in draft form in our shared workspace, waiting for the right time, waiting for buy-in, waiting apparently for my sister to Coral Sea and become Visionary of the Year. I didn't look up. I just turned the page. "This is quite cohesive," I said softly, especially from someone who once asked if natural products needed preservatives. Sabrina blinked. "Let's keep this constructive," my father said. "I am," I replied. "I'm reconstructing the timeline of intellectual theft. No one is stealing anything," he snapped, tone suddenly sharp. "This isn't personal." I looked at him, then really looked. "This is the definition of personal," I said. "You took my work, my role, and gave it to someone whose biggest contribution so far has been a TikTok about skin positivity sponsored by Rose Quartz." No one responded. No one needed to. I stood, straightened the cuff of my blazer. The room held its breath. "Well," I said, "thank you for the clarity. I suppose I'll use this unpaid inspiration leave to reflect." I stepped toward the door, turned back just once. "I suggest you audit your shareholder agreements," I said, voice calm. "If I were you, I'd be very clear on who actually owns what, and which non-voting shares are about to become very, very vocal." Then I walked out, quietly, without slamming the door, without raising my voice. But with every step, I could feel the walls shift behind me. I had just become the problem they thought they'd eliminated, and they didn't even know it yet. I didn't go home right away. I walked past the valet, ignored his polite offer to call a car, and kept going until the polished sidewalk turned to uneven brick, until the luxury storefronts gave way to shuttered boutiques and neon signs that flickered like loose nerves. My feet moved like they remembered the way before GPS. 15 years. That's how long I poured into Sterling Botanica, into my family, into a vision no one else saw clearly until I forced it into focus. They called it evolution. I called it extraction. The first time I tested the formula that would become our best seller, I used my college rice cooker. It smelled like lavender and regret. I'd stayed up for 3 nights straight, reading white papers on botanical emulsifiers, trying to stabilize the oil base without synthetic binders. The cream curdled. I cried, then I did it again and again until it didn't. Sabrina walked in one of those nights barefoot, holding a cocktail with crushed mint and too much gin. "Why are you still doing this?" she asked, genuinely confused. "You're not even selling it." Yet I replied. She laughed and said, "You're crazy, but like, the noble kind." That was the year she dropped out of a communications degree to pursue creative consulting. Our parents applauded the decision. "At least she's finding herself," my mother said, as if self-discovery was a business model. When I signed our first vendor contract, I stayed up all night formatting the PDF because we couldn't afford a lawyer. My father skimmed it, called it a good hustle, and said he'd help fund inventory if we kept it small, manageable. That meant don't dream bigger than the kitchen. But I had already tasted what it felt like to make something real. Sabrina started joining meetings not long after we launched. At first, she just sat in, observing, learning. She claimed. I believed her. She posted photos with our product. I was grateful. Then she started speaking in calls. "Changing language. Let's soften the clinical stuff," she said. "People want to feel seen, not schooled." That was the first time a buyer mentioned her name instead of mine. I let it go. We were a team, weren't we? My mother once told me, "You and your sister balance each other. You're the brain, she's the heart." It sounded flattering. Until I realized no one asks the heart to manage fulfillment systems. No one asks the heart to pitch a funding round or proofread compliance forms. I was the blueprint. She was the sparkle. And somewhere along the way, sparkle became strategy. There had been a moment, a real one, when I could have stopped it. About 2 years ago, Laura Bloom pulled me aside after a quarterly update. "Brilliance without leverage is a liability," she said. I thought she was being dramatic. "You're bleeding shares," she warned. "Death by paper cut is still death." I told her it was family. We didn't vote against each other. She stared and said, "You're not protecting your position. By avoiding conflict, you're forfeiting." 2 months later, she left the board. I told myself it was unrelated. I lied. Now I was sitting on the rooftop of my apartment watching the city dim. The scent of basil from someone's balcony mixed with car exhaust and spring air. I checked my phone. No messages. No one asked if I was okay. Of course not. I'd made it look too easy. Even when they erased me, especially then. That night, I pulled out an old notebook, black leather, unmarked, inside our original product map. Formulas, launch tiers, and something else, Sterling Earth. A brand I once wanted to grow. Too minimalist, too niche, too mine. I flipped to the back cover and began writing. Not feelings, not regrets, names, board members, shareholders. Everyone in that room who smiled too tightly. Next to each a percentage, a vulnerability, a leverage point. They wanted me to take a break. I would, but not from business, just from being polite. I didn't sleep much that week. Not out of grief, not even rage. It was logistics that kept me awake. Questions. What did they overlook? Who did they underestimate? How deep did they think my roots went? Because when you've built something from nothing, you don't forget the foundation. Even if they rename the walls and repaint the brand, they thought I'd walk away with a bruised ego and a generous severance. They forgot I was the one who structured the cap table in the first place. I started with the easy ones. A former ops manager who'd quietly left last year after Sabrina slashed the sustainability budget. A copywriter who still used my calendula balm and once said I was the only reason she stayed. A supplier from Oregon whose invoices Sabrina delayed for 6 weeks because they lacked aesthetic branding. These weren't allies, not yet. But they were people with reasons, people who hadn't forgotten. I didn't need loyalty. I needed access and silence. Sterling West Ventures LLC was registered in Delaware on a Tuesday. I used a law firm in Boston, Reliable Discreet. Laura had given me the name before she left. In case you ever stopped playing nice, she'd said. The firm handled everything: holding company, clean purpose statement, filings routed through a trustee with a forgettable name. No direct line back to me, not yet. I met Dean on a Thursday. He chose the cafe, downtown, quiet. The kind of place where cappuccinos come with motivational quotes printed in cocoa powder. Mine said some doors close so better ones can open. Subtle. Dean looked tired, not messy, just worn down. In the way of someone who'd stayed loyal to a vision that no longer existed. I heard he said. Didn't expect them to do it so cleanly. Clean is a matter of narrative, not ethics, I told him. Are you filing something, he asked. Not yet, I said. I'm buying. I opened my notebook. No logos, just names, numbers. His was underlined. You hold 3.6%. Convertible, silent but not powerless. He didn't respond. I turned the page, showed him the structure, Sterling West, buyback path, valuation if Sterling Earth relaunches with zero product overlap. You already started, he asked. I nodded. You were always better at timing than they realized, he said. That's the thing about PR people. I told him they think controlling the message means controlling the outcome. He didn't say yes that day. I didn't expect him to. But he didn't walk away either. That was enough. The next 3 weeks were a study in restraint. I didn't post. I didn't correct the press when they called Sabrina co-founder or used my face as a nostalgic footnote. I let the spotlight settle where it wanted while I built in the dark. Sterling Earth wasn't dead, just dormant. I still owned the trademark. The board had stopped pushing it when they prioritized Sabrina's GlowGen campaign. It was a good idea, just not loud enough. Now quiet was leverage. We reactivated the license, rehired a single partner in Vermont, used leftover packaging, no press, no ads, just product. Direct to consumer, invitation only. Within 10 days, we had a 37% return rate. By day 20, we were backordered. The name was still mine, and it was starting to echo. I hadn't spoken to my parents, not since the meeting, but I heard quietly that a minor investor shift was starting to concern a junior board member. Nothing official, just murmurs. But that's the thing about murmurs, they spread. Faster than press releases. Then, on a quiet Wednesday evening, I got an email from our old logistics consultant. One line, no greeting. There's talk about reprinting the labels. Word is they're removing your name from the original product story. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I hit reply. Tell them to spell Sterling correctly. They'll need it again soon. Sterling Earth wasn't designed to go viral. It didn't sparkle. It didn't pop on camera. It didn't fit neatly into flat lays or morning routines, narrated over lo-fi beats. It wasn't Sabrina's kind of brand. It was mine. Built with slow hands and slower ambition. Built to last longer than a TikTok trend cycle. And that's why it worked. We launched 5 SKUs. No influencer seeding, no PR blast. Just one pinned post on an anonymous Reddit thread written by someone who used to formulate for luxury brands and now only trusted small batch founder-led formulas. The thread gained traction, the comments grew, so did the waitlist. We started shipping batch 2 within 3 weeks. I didn't take a salary. Every dollar went back into fulfillment. Every customer who reordered got a handwritten note, no signature, just a thank you and a quote from a 2013 Sterling Botanica training manual. One I wrote. One they still use. I wasn't trying to make noise. I was building proof. Because narrative wins headlines, but numbers win meetings. Dean came back to me with 2 offers, one from a European green beauty distributor who wanted early rights, and one from a fund that had previously passed on Sterling Botanica because we don't invest in family-run operations. Funny how independent suddenly looked appealing when the origin story came with analytics. We said no to both, not because we didn't need capital, because I needed control. I started buying out more shares, not many, just enough. Tiny pockets of discontent people who hadn't felt aligned since the rebrand shifted us from clean wellness to luxury glow lifestyle. That was Sabrina's term, glow lifestyle. I never liked it. It felt hollow, like marketing a mirror. But I didn't argue, not then. Now every disillusioned share she left behind I picked up. Quietly, through proxies, trusts, shells. With just enough delay and distance to seem coincidental. The votes hadn't changed, but the weight behind them had. 3 months in, Laura met me for lunch. She hadn't aged a day. She didn't ask how I was, just placed a leather folder on the table. Latest from Botanica's investor comms, she said. I flipped it open. The forward strategy memo highlighted key pain points, one of them brand confusion, from unauthorized sublabels claiming association, Sterling Earth. They couldn't sue me. They'd never properly absorbed the brand. It was mine, legally, financially, creatively. They'd just forgotten it existed until it started outselling their flagship serum 3-to-1 in a key demo. They're calling it sabotage, Laura said, sipping her tea. I haven't said a word. Exactly. That weekend, I received a call from a former senior product developer at Botanica. One who'd been unceremoniously restructured during Sabrina's efficiency campaign. She wanted to talk. We met at a hotel bar 2 hours outside the city. She slid over a flash drive. You didn't get this from me, she said. It contained 3 months of internal memos, manufacturing delays, supplier complaints, notes about an urgent need to pivot narrative before Clara regains industry ground. They weren't planning defense. They were preparing for battle. That was their first real mistake. They assumed I was coming for war. I wasn't. I was coming for the name. Names are funny. People think they're static. But branding is a living thing. It breathes. It forgets. It can be reminded. They thought they'd removed mine from the brand. They forgot the brand was built in my name. Sterling, not just a label, a legacy. Power doesn't leave with noise. It leaves with silence, with empty chairs, with paused replies and unread slacks, with investors who need to think about it. Sterling Botanica wasn't bleeding yet, but it was beginning to bruise. And bruises, when you press just right, reveal where the bone is already cracked. The flash drive was more useful than I expected. Not for exposure, this wasn't about leaking. I wasn't interested in headlines. I was interested in pattern. Repeated product complaints from our primary serum line. Rising refund requests. A dip in influencer conversion. And worst of all, a plateau in customer lifetime value, the quiet metric that always signals brand fatigue before anyone says it out loud. They were stalling, rebranding, reposting, reshooting campaigns with newer faces and more filters. But still, the numbers didn't lie. They were out of story. I wasn't. I sent the anonymized data set to one person, a minor board member named Celeste. She'd joined after our Series B, soft-spoken, sharp-eyed, and perpetually overlooked by everyone who thought style outweighed substance. I knew better. She replied within the hour. Can we talk? We met over coffee. No small talk. Celeste had done her homework. I saw the filings, she said. Sterling West. You've been busy. I didn't deny it. I'm not looking to dismantle Botanica, I said. I'm looking to reclaim clarity. Her lips curved almost imperceptibly. Do they know she asked? They suspect I said. But they're still pretending I'm a ghost, not a variable. By the end of that week, I had informal touchpoints with 3 mid-level department heads. 2 were legacy hires I'd brought in. The third had been poached by Sabrina last year and was already regretting it. I wasn't recruiting. I was reminding. People don't leave companies. They leave stories they no longer believe in. And I was offering a new one. The cracks deepened from the inside. A client email went unanswered for 72 hours. An internal deck was leaked and circulated in investor WhatsApp groups. A reporter I hadn't spoken to in years called me with a single question. Are you planning to return to Botanica? I laughed. Return? I never left. They just stopped seeing me. He didn't print that quote, but he didn't forget it either. The real shift came with the press invite. A full-scale rebrand launch for Botanica, scheduled 2 months from now. New product line, new packaging, a legacy spotlight segment at the end featuring Sabrina's journey. My name wasn't listed, not even as a founder. The invitation arrived in a silver envelope sealed with wax. Old money aesthetics masking a new money panic. I RSVP'd. 1 word, attending. Celeste sent a single text later that day. They just pulled 2 media buyers off the Q3 campaign to prep for the launch. They're scrambling. I smiled. Scrambling isn't strategy, it's theater. And I'd always preferred writing scripts over reading them. I didn't need to make a scene. I didn't need to raise my voice. All I had to do was show up and let gravity do the rest. The ballroom smelled expensive. Too much white floral, too much fig. The chairs were ghost chairs, clear acrylic, the kind that photographed well under branded lighting. The stage was backlit in soft lavender, our legacy color, the one I chose the year we launched because it reminded me of safety and soil. Now it reminded me of erasure. I sat 3 rows from the front, not hidden, not centered, perfectly visible, but strategically ignorable, until I chose otherwise. The event began with a video montage, Sterling Botanica's evolution, stock footage, glass droppers, sunlight filtered through linen curtains, narrated by a voice that wasn't mine. Then came the speeches, the head of product, the lead chemist, a partner from a retail chain who called Sabrina a beacon of innovation. Then her. Sabrina walked on stage wearing white, minimalist, asymmetrical, expensive. She looked smaller than I remembered, not physically, energetically, like someone carrying a story that didn't quite fit their skin. Sterling Botanica has always been about vision she began, about honoring our roots while embracing the future. She said the words like she believed them, or needed to. Our family has always believed in women leading women, and today I'm proud to take our brand into its next chapter. The applause came on cue, even the lighting shifted rose gold and forgiving. Then the host returned smiling too widely. And now she said our legacy segment, a tribute to where we began. The screen flickered. Old photos, booth shots from our first trade show, Instagram posts from 2016, handwritten labels, Clara in the background sleeves, rolled hair tied back, smile crooked, no voiceover, no name, just image after image of work they no longer wanted to associate with the woman who did it. And then fate or irony or both. The final image froze. Not Sabrina, me, my kitchen. Stirring batch 0 of what would become our flagship serum. Wearing an apron, bare-faced, focused. It stayed on screen for half a second too long. Someone in the audience clapped. One person, then another. The applause spread uneven, hesitant, real. I stood, not to make a scene, just to make it impossible to pretend I wasn't there. Eyes turned. A ripple moved through the chairs like tension through water. Sabrina froze mid-sentence. She saw me. Her lips parted. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her silence said everything. The host tried to move on. Let's give a warm thank you to. But it was too late. The room had already shifted. I didn't approach the stage. I didn't take the mic. I didn't need to. They had built a spotlight on a foundation I poured myself, and now they had to stand in it with me. On my way out, I passed a cluster of investors near the bar. One nodded, another raised a glass. A third whispered, "That's the real founder, right?" Back at home, a message waited. From Celeste. 2 words, "You're in." The door wasn't closed, it was just locked. And I'd always had the key. The boardroom looked different. Larger, brighter, new art on the walls. Someone had replaced the framed values manifesto I wrote a decade ago with a blown-up image of a Glow Your Way product campaign. Slick, pretty, forgettable. I sat at the long glass table, just to the left of center. Not in my old seat. That one was now Sabrina's. She didn't look at me as I sat down. Neither did our father. But Celeste did, and she smiled. The meeting began with formalities, minutes, motions, muted small talk. Then came the agenda item that mattered: board structure review. Dean introduced the motion. Voice calm, paperwork precise. "I'd like to propose a revision of voting shares," he said, "in light of recent capital shifts and valuation trajectory." There was silence, then confusion, and then concern. Someone asked to pause the meeting. Another asked for clarification. Celeste cleared her throat. As of last week, she said, Sterling West Ventures holds 23% of voting shares in Sterling Botanica, with proxy alignment totaling 41.2%. The air thinned. The math didn't lie. Neither did the filings. My father finally spoke. You accumulated that quietly. Quietly, I agreed, but not illegally. He swallowed hard. This isn't how we do things. It's how I do things, I said. Now. The proposal I handed out was clean. Merge brand vision oversight with operations. Remove the family exception clause in executive hiring. Reinstate the R&D department as an autonomous structure. And most notably, rebrand Sterling Botanica to Sterling, one word. The name that mattered. The name they tried to keep on packaging while removing the person behind it. Sabrina finally broke her silence. This is personal. No, I said. It's structural. You just don't like the structure anymore. She opened her mouth, closed it again. Even she could read the room. Even she knew this wasn't revenge. It was return. And not one built on drama, but on documents. The vote passed unanimously. Even my father voted yes. Eventually. Afterwards, he stayed behind. Everyone else cleared the room. He looked older than I remembered. He didn't apologize. He said, "You're colder than I thought?" I smiled. No, I said. I just stopped asking to be understood. At the elevator, Sabrina waited. She didn't speak, just held the folder I distributed. She looked at the cover page, the one that said, Sterling Reclaiming the Origin, then up at me. I thought I could do it better, she said, without all the heavy parts. You thought wrong, I replied, not unkindly. And I meant it, not cruel, just final. The logo was changed within a month. Packaging, website, contracts, everything. No drama, no announcement, just a quiet update to the footer of every page Sterling. Est by Clara Sterling, 2013. Let the world remember however it wants. I only needed the truth in writing. There was no press release, no founder returns op-ed, no headline redemption, just a quiet shift in font. A new signature sent. A front-page update that no one could trace to a press event or crisis PR. That was the point. They used noise. I used permanence. Sterling, one word, clean, precise, unmistakable. Not a lifestyle brand, not a family, a name, my name. Sabrina stayed on. Not by choice, but by contract. She became Chief Creative Officer, reporting to a new board structure she helped design, but no longer controlled. We didn't speak much, a few forwarded memos. One post-launch debrief, where she suggested a more playful tone. I nodded. Didn't agree. Didn't disagree. Didn't need to. Her power had never been in strategy. It had always been in visibility. And now the light wasn't as warm. My mother sent me a package. No note, just a box. Inside the first pair of earrings I ever made in a weekend jewelry class. I gave them to her when I signed our first distribution deal. She never wore them. Until the day they removed me, I saw them glinting beneath the boardroom lights when she looked away from me. Now they were back, tarnished, delicate, returned. I didn't reply. Some conversations end better in silence. Dean visited the office once. He stood in the new reception area, nodded at the updated signage, and said, "It finally looks like you." "It always did," I said. "They just covered it with frost. I didn't become a spokesperson. I didn't write a memoir. I didn't take victory laps. Instead, I founded a fund, Founders Without Families, a mentorship and microgrant program for women who had the vision, but not the bloodline. It was small at first, but like most things I build, it grew. Slow, steady, rooted. People asked why I never sued, why I never went public, why I let them keep their reputation intact. I always answer the same, because I wasn't trying to destroy their version. I was trying to reclaim mine. And now it's mine, in writing, in contracts, in history. Sometimes I see new hires touring the office. They pass the wall of founders. Only one name is etched in brushed steel. No image, no tagline. Just Clara Sterling formulation, foundation, forward. No one ever asks who she is, because now they know, and this time no one can rewrite it.